Welcome to the Down South Hunting Podcast, brought to you by the OnX Hunt app, which you can download on iTunes or Android or whatever. You can also use it on your desktop. We love it. You should love it too. If you haven't tried it out, you can get a free trial of it. And today we are wrapping up the OnX Hunt Down South Hunting Challenge that we did, Seeking New Ground. The New Ground Challenge. I'll get this name right.
That's
Adam,
it.
what's up? How's it going?
Man, I'm doing well. I'm highly entertained watching you go through that one, trying to find the name that you came up with, which was, you actually nailed it the first go around. So anyways,
it took me like 30 seconds to say like the 4 words I needed to. I just kept like, if I keep talking, the right thing will come out eventually, I think.
it sounded really good. No one else would have known but me.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And of course, we're not going to edit that out. So welcome to the Down South Hunting Podcast. This is Mike Higman.
I'm Adam Cruz.
And man, you already went hunting. So
I did.
we have a really good interview we did last night with a couple guys from Georgia Outdoor News. And you know what I noticed, Adam, is a lot of podcasts I listen to, including ours, you do like in the intro, you do this whole like introduction talking about who you're going to talk to. And then right before you go to the interview, you also say, okay, next we're going to talk to so-and-so. And then you get on the line with a person and you go, on the line, we have and you go through the whole thing again. So I know when we did this interview, I introduced him at the beginning. So, and also it's going to be in the title. Yeah. So I'm not going to go through talking about who we talked to tonight, other than to say it was a really good interview.
It was a really good interview. And I'll say this one thing. It really kind of challenged me personally to find a hunting partner that I could really get like infused with and plugged in with, because I think that right there is one element that can help us all be just a little bit more passionate, a little bit more ambitious about what we do, and a little bit more dedicated. You guys are going to love this episode.
All right. So now that we got that out of the way, tell me about your hunt last week. Obviously, you didn't have an awesome hunting partner last weekend.
No, I had my brother, so he was a good hunting partner, and he did buy, one of those fancy cellular spy point cameras. So that's how I've been getting the pictures of the good deer.
So maybe your brother's that guy. You just need to like fuse that relationship.
The problem with Dylan is he can't wake up. That's his main thing. And like, I'm not exactly a morning person, but I need somebody. Like, I can't have somebody continue to snore, so I do have to literally kick him out of the bed. So here, I'll give you kind of the story. Me and Dylan had this thing like, okay, who's going to hunt this tree stand, right? Like, this was supposed to be my spot in the beginning, but I moved my trail camera. He ended up moving his there, and he was going to hunt it. He's like, all right, man, if you don't mind, I'm going to hunt it. I was cool with it. It's all good. Well, the first evening, he just, we talked about it, and I said, dude, that deer's coming in the morning time. He came in the same exact wind as we're going to have is when he came in on the camera. So hunt it on Saturday morning. So he's like, okay, I'll hunt it on Saturday morning. So he went somewhere else Friday morning. I ended up seeing a ton of deer Friday afternoon. Didn't get close enough to kill a buck. But anyways, Saturday morning rolls around. He stays up. I think he was partying all night, to be honest with you, because I roll into his bedroom, and it looked like he just went to bed. And I'm, like, kicking him, hey, man, wake up, wake up, wake up. He wouldn't even roll out of bed. So I left my tree stand in the woods so I didn't have to tote that sucker back. I ended up having to take his tree stand. I stole his tree stand, went and hung it where we had been getting pictures of that buck. Long story short, I did see a buck. It wasn't the big one. We've got more pictures of him since then. No one's actually seen this deer. Neither one of us killed anything over that weekend, but I did see a ton of bucks. I learned a lot as far as maybe like early season hunting about what I want to do next year. I'm not going to be doing any kind of running and gunning per se. Tennessee has this hunt next year. I'm going to have fixed stands and make it super easy for me to get in and out. I'm going to have a few locations picked. Like
big corn piles.
Huge, not corn piles, because that's not legal, game wardens. So I would never do that. But yeah, that'd be like some pure minerals, no food additives.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Dad.
I really wish you would have killed that buck while he was sleeping in. That would have been really.
Dude.
Good to rub in his face.
Yeah, and I even stayed later too. I almost stepped on a snake, and everyone I think knows how bad I hate snakes. So I literally screamed like a little girl on my way back.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I did. I think I found his bed too. I found a couple of beds.
The snake bed?
No, the buck bed.
Yeah.
He's literally bedding probably 100 yards away from the tree stand, and in a position where it's going to be extremely difficult to access without him at least knowing someone is coming by. Like you have to go by this deer. It's not possible not to go by this deer to get there, just because of the way we have to access the property. So in some shape or form, he will see or hear a human being if he used to bed in that area, and maybe he moves. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, to be continued, right?
Sure.
I mean, are you going back there to hunt much?
I'm probably not going back until October. I'm going to Kentucky, and then I'm going to do some public land hunting until October, and then I'm going to go back home. And
yeah, that's pretty exciting. You're going to Kentucky this weekend, right?
Yeah, scheduled.
Sweet.
Yep, ready to go.
Well, I'm building like an online empire right now. I might not be hunting until like October. I don't know. We'll see.
It's not going to work.
Right now, my life is consumed by egg cartons. That's my online business. So it's I mean, that's fun in its own right, but it's not hunting for sure. So anyway,
I think you need to get your priorities straight, honestly. Like what's more important.
I'm working on that. I am.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. But this weekend I did go long weekend, Labor Day weekend. I went out of town, planted some food plots up at my dad's property. We planted some oats and some kind of brassicas a little bit. So hopefully that works out. It's been so wet. I had to dig. Also, it wasn't just planting food plots. I was like fixing gates and stuff. Dug a post hole, and like 2 feet down is like it's filling up with water. So the water table is super high. I don't know if that's like, I mean, the soil's going to stay moist, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit early here in Florida to be planting oats. So we'll see. It's when I had a free weekend, so I went.
How often do you actually hunt that property?
Last year I didn't at all because I had like 1,000 acres of unhunted land to myself. Not quite high fence. There's no fence. Free range, tied up deer or something. Yeah, but I did. Yeah. Anyway, maybe a couple times. It's more like family time. And the other thing is it's connected to close to 100,000 acres of public land. So that is like heavily pressured by dog hunters. So I think the dog hunting starts in November. So basically once that happens, I don't even get pictures of deer on my trail cams anymore. I know they go somewhere. I just have no idea where. So a couple times a year. But I got a bunch of public land hunts in different areas around the state that I'm really looking forward to. So even though I might not start my hunting until October this year, that's my first like definite archery hunt. I've got to hunt at the end of February. So I'll get a good long season no matter what. I just might be starting late.
Man, we actually have some pretty big news to announce. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, let's do it.
I think we should. I think we've put everyone off long enough. What is today? Tomorrow's what, the 6th? We drew these names on the 1st. It's time to release the New Ground Challenge winners. And drum roll, Mike, please lead us in the direction we need to go.
I would like I feel like the drum roll is a little misleading because the drum roll is check your email.
Oh, yes.
We did not ask for names. We're learning, guys. So hang with us. We didn't ask for names. We just asked for email addresses. And I'm not going to go through a list of 18 email addresses announcing the winner. So check your email. We're going to email everybody. And I'll tell you the good thing about that is if these people do not reply in time, we're going to be picking new winners. So we'll I'm fairly confident there's going to be some people that we don't hear back from. So we'll let you know again when to recheck your email. But go ahead and when this is out, check your email because we'll have sent you an email telling you what you've won. If you didn't get an email, hang tight. Maybe there's still a chance you can get something. So I'll tell you this, it's really interesting. We did have it ran the gambit of people that only entered their email address all the way to people that had tons of referrals. So whether you did one of those two things, it could be you. So
Most definitely.
I did. So let's kind of wrap up this whole New Ground Challenge thing. Adam, can you tell me a couple highlights of kind of going through the whole process, what you learned from it, that kind of stuff?
What I learned is how to efficiently not only find. It's been one thing to use OnX to find hunting properties and to find landowner names. It's been another thing to actually access those landowners' address, their mailing address, and phone numbers, and even find them on Facebook. I've learned a lot of different things around that particular piece because that is very time consuming in itself. But OnX makes that so much easier. So that's one main thing that I've learned. The second one would be just articulating a letter, which I haven't been successful and received any yeses back. But crafting that letter, seeing what might work, I think it may take a little time. Handwriting it, typing it, whatever it might be. I've learned a lot on that piece right there. And so at least I have something in the can for when I want to continue to do this in the future. And I am on the edge of receiving possibly a really huge chunk of private land to hunt, but it actually has nothing to do with OnX. It just kind of happened that way. So one of those deals. I've got my fingers crossed. It's actually about 4,000 acres.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a game changer right there. Like, is anybody else hunting it?
One person for sure.
Okay.
That's
and
it.
You can probably get rid of that person.
No, they're the ones that might be getting me access.
So, get it written. Get it written first. Yeah.
Yeah, that person knows who they are. So.
All right.
Come on.
Do you have anything? Yeah. What do you have to say?
I will
a forum here to like.
I will make it worth their while.
Okay.
I promise.
Venison jerky?
No, better.
All right, good.
All right, what have you learned, man?
So just hearing you say that, I need to follow your lead some. I think I need to send some letters, in the off season. So that's not one of the things I learned, but just hearing you say that, hopefully other people are encouraged by that too. I do think that's like a good tactic. And we've heard some other people, we just haven't been able to put the interviews together to talk to some of these people, but we have heard some other listeners that have had success. And with some of these guys, letters is definitely part of it. And, I'm just saying that, like, these guys, man, if there's ladies out there, I feel like they should definitely be able to gain some permission.
A better chance than us.
Yeah.
Some
I'm just
hairy,
saying.
goofy looking dude knocking on the door.
Yeah. Anyway, so a couple things. One is I possibly have a couple maybes on access, so that's great. I learned a lot about basically the area where I might be able to do this some more going forward. I got a lot of more experience with the OnX app, which, I'm pretty new to it this year. I'd been using something else. And yeah, the features are just, I'm a huge fan. So I'm looking forward to like learning more as well, like the sharing features and all that kind of stuff. And then, just knocking on doors, like there's something I'm working on. I guess I'll kind of give a roundabout explanation of it real quick. Is I talked to a guy who works for a government organization, and he basically put me in touch with a guy that is in charge of contracts for hog hunting on this public land. Like it's not like it's like hog removal. But it just kind of got me thinking, like that could turn into a really big project. You know how a lot of these cities will put together bow hunting clubs so they can hunt in the city for deer or whatever. I don't see a reason that couldn't be done with deer. So I'm going to look into that some more. And I definitely would not have even thought of that without just knocking on some doors and kind of running into people. So you never know. So I'm pretty excited about that. But I'm real excited about just going forward with OnX, learning more about it.
That's
it, man.
It's definitely a good tool, man. The more you know and the more you know how to use that, the more dangerous you'll be, especially if you ever start considering Western hunts and that sort of thing. Start using the turkey, the NWTF feature, that overlay. It's pretty cool. So if you ever want to try out a out-of-state hunt or even look at different counties in Florida, you can check that sucker out, and it'll really help you.
You know what else I'm excited about is the overlays for fire, because they do a lot of like prescribed fire and stuff, and that's included. It's not just wildfire. So, I've found areas that are burned are a lot of times it's way less thick for hunting, and also there's lots of food. So, as the season goes on, we'll talk about that stuff too. So, man, we need to go ahead and get this interview because we had a long interview. It was a lot of good stuff we covered with JT and Bubba. So let's go ahead and get into that. The only thing I wanted to warn everybody is I think the audio on this is not going to be the best. Sometimes it's tough having 4 different people and you're not in the same room. So there's some talking over and that kind of stuff, which we do our best to avoid and edit out and that kind of stuff. But sometimes it's just tough. So hopefully you're not as picky as I am and it doesn't bother you at all. So this is really good though. So it's not the kind of thing that's going to be annoying.
Not at all. Let's kick it off, man.
Yeah, man, let's do it. All right, we got a couple guys that I've been looking forward to talking to for a while. I've been following them for years. We've got JT and Bubba, and they're at least most well known to me for doing Live from the Tree on Georgia Outdoor News. They've also got livefromthetree.com, and these guys hunt across the Midwest every year, traveling several states, and a couple Georgia guys that followed their dreams to hunt up in the Midwest, and we're going to talk to them about that tonight. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. So I guess, JT, could you kind of tell us how you guys got started Live from the Tree, how long you've been doing it, and maybe just explain to us what it is every year?
Well, Live from the Tree itself actually started I guess it kind of started in 2003 or so. And it was kind of a crazy thing. The actual start of actual Live from the Tree, starting posting it, that kind of thing started in 2005. But in 2003, I think it was, I was sitting in a tree in Heard County, Georgia, with a blackberry in my hand, and had never killed a 10-point in my life. Had killed a few other deer, but not a 10-point. And I had one that was under me that was kind of traveling along, and I took a picture of it and posted it on Georgia Outdoor News, which at the time was Woody's Campfire, but posted it on Woody's. And ask everybody, hey, do you think I should shoot this deer? That age-old question, and it kind of took off from there.
And was that, I guess, so there wasn't like a Live from the Tree thread. You just started a thread like, hey, should I shoot this deer?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact wording behind it because we lost the forum back then and lost all of the archived forum and all threads and all. But whatever the wording was, it was a picture of a 10-point below me that was live at the time, and kind of just threw it out there. Hey, man, this is crazy. I've got a 10-point under me right now. It's not a huge 10, but I've never killed a 10 before, And I was talking to Bubba at the same time I think it was probably on a walkie-talkie at the time, a 2-way radio at the time. Man, what do I do? Do I really want to shoot this deer? I've never shot a 10 before, and just kind of all the things that go through your mind, when you see a deer. And then a couple of years later, I guess we kind of slipped up, and Bubba found us an outfitter in Texas. Neither of us had ever been out of state before. He found us an outfitter in Texas in 2005. And in early December 2005, me and Bubba and May, which May is old May, as we call him, is Bubba's daddy, took a trip to Texas, and every bit of that kind of started live. We started posting live and talking live, and that's kind of where it started.
Oh, I got to ask, did you shoot the 10-pointer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, heck yeah, I shot it. It was a good deer, and I shot it.
He was actually talking to me
at
the same time and asked me, should he kill it? Same thing he was posting. And I said, you don't have a 10 on the wall. Shoot the thing. And it wasn't just a second later, the boom.
I bet.
It was a nice 10 for where we hunted in Georgia. It was a nice 10.
I bet you guys were using Nextels back then.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Although I'm not sure you could mute that beeping noise every time you walkied somebody, so maybe not.
Right, exactly.
That's right.
I believe
mine was a blackberry for sure.
Yeah. So, like I said, it turned out we were both hunting Georgia, hadn't been out west, and it turned out to be a nice 10, and was certainly put on the wall.
So, JT, how did it come about that you ended up moving up north full time? Because did you grow up in Georgia?
Yeah, I grew up in Georgia, born and raised there all my life, all my roots there. Never been, except for, just normal traveling or vacation, that kind of thing. Never even been out of the state. Definitely never hunted out of the state. I said, well, maybe Alabama once or twice, but either way. In 2006, which was the second year of Live from the Tree, we made the mistake of moving it from Texas to also a little outfitter in Southern Illinois, which happens to be 15 minutes from where I live right now. But Bubba found an outfitter up here, and we visited the outfitter, and we hunted for the 3-day shotgun season, November of 2006. And within about 4 hours, I had not seen but maybe one deer, and I think it swam by me. I think I was in a floodplain at the time, and Gary had seen 5 or 6
I planned
deer,
that,
10
by the
deer,
way.
30 deer. Yeah, he planned it. He probably saw 30 deer that morning, and all of them were bigger than any deer he'd ever seen in Georgia. And then at about probably Bubba, 5 minutes after 12 that day, he shot a boone
12,
crockett.
15, yeah.
And
First
that
trip
immediately
Illinois,
caused
that
us
was-
to.
So when you guys were
Yeah, that
hunting,
immediately caused us to go crazy.
when you guys were hunting Outfitters, would that be like all the stands are set up and you guys show up and camp and they got meals and all that stuff, or was it more, hey, I got some ground, you guys figure it out?
Well, we've done both. We've done the do-it-yourself with an outfitter and leased a portion of their farm, and then we go with a full-fledged outfitter where they take care of everything, got stands, food, lodging, and all that. So we've done A to Z on the outfitters. But in the case of the one JT's referring to, we were hooked then with the Midwest, and Jay, probably 2008 when the market, everything fell apart, the outfitter went out of business. And so I bought a little house up there that we went up and turned into a lodge. And I believe in 10, the market was still bad here, and that's when Jay decided to move up there and moved into the lodge. And so we were able to keep that lease, 2,500 acre lease, and then had the lodge right beside it. So it was a perfect setup for a while.
Wow, no kidding. Yeah, so you guys you own the house, but you didn't own the you leased the property next door.
Exactly,
right.
Which was the same ground that the outfitter had. He wanted to keep the lease, and so we were able to keep hunting it and run some other hunters on it. And in return, we let them stay in the lodge and use it, and so it worked out. We got to hunt it, and they got to have a place to stay.
Guys, I got a couple of buddies in Georgia that do the exact same thing. They have leases in Illinois, and then they literally own a place to hunt to use as a lodge. Is that a pretty common thing for out-of-state hunters that's going to Illinois and other places that you see?
I don't see a lot of them.
I've never run across it.
That better.
Yeah.
I guess you're all the only four guys that do
it.
Well,
maybe
I don't know that I've talked to any. A lot of folks wanted to lease ours or rent our place and be able to stay in it because they were hunting up there, close to the lodge. But I don't know of a lot of folks that own a place up there, a place to stay and lease ground. So I know folks that own small farms or little pieces of ground.
Was that tough,
in
JT?
2010, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if that was tough just to leave Georgia and move up there full time, or that's like kind of living the dream kind of deal, like exactly what you wanted to do. What was that like?
Man, it was a little bit of both. I mean, I can't say that it was tough just because, I've got family there, mom's still there, that kind of thing. But for the most part, I'd just gone through a divorce a couple of years before that or a separation and just kind of said, all right, packed up, put in notice at the place that I was selling Chevrolets at that I'd been there for a good long time and packed up and moved this direction. So that part was not that tough. It worked out pretty good when we moved into that lodge in 2010 was because I lived there for what Gary, maybe 9 months a year. And that gave us a place to hunt in October and December. And then we leased the hunters that came into town that hunted the property with the outfitter, basically rented the place from Gary and gave us while we were on the road. So, it gave us a place to hunt local close to home for October and December and then in January. So, it's a perfect situation. It all worked out great at the time.
Did you guys not really get into outfitting just because it's during hunting season and that you'd rather be hunting than helping other people? Not necessarily don't want to help people, but then I guess setting up for other people, you'd rather be out doing it yourself.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, that's we couldn't stand not being in a tree every day of November and most of October. There's no way we couldn't do it. And that's a reason we don't do a lot of filming because both of us want to hunt. And so we're just not going to give up that time of sitting in a tree being able to hunt. We do all of our stuff from the live from the tree and web-based instead of filming so much. We can't give up that time.
I don't want anybody in a tree with me.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So we talked about it. We discussed it, but we couldn't pull the trigger on it.
We kind of got to where y'all started and how you got to where you're at. Maybe JT, can you tell us what this season has in store? What you guys are going to be doing live from the tree?
We've got. Let's see, Gary. We started with Missouri. It's been 3 years ago now. Is that right? 2 years ago now.
Yep. This will be our third.
That's our home base. Yeah, so we've got a home base in Missouri with cabin and place for the campers and four-wheelers and Ranger and all that good stuff. And that'll be the home base. And then we're going to travel from there to Kansas and to Iowa. And then, of course, be hunting. I've got some land to hunt here local. And then Gary's got land, of course, in Georgia to hunt. And he may still be doing Kentucky. We hadn't wrapped that part up yet.
Yeah, I can't decide. I hadn't worked that out. Maybe there's an outfitter in Kentucky that we've used many times. As a matter of fact, it's the land that Greg Ritz owned years ago, if you're familiar with him, with Thompson Center.
Yeah.
And he gave up that land, and this outfitter got half of it. So it's about 6,000 contiguous acres. It's a really strong outfitter. And I've been with him a good many times. So thinking about working that out, going back up there. And but we start, October 22nd in Missouri for about 2.5 weeks. And then we're in Kansas November 5th for about 6 days. And then Iowa for 6 days on the 11th. And then back to Missouri for a couple of weeks before we're back home for real quick Thanksgiving. And then back up in December for, I think, 10 or 12 days. And then probably again January, depending on what happens and how it all plays out.
So about how many days are we talking here where you're actually in the stand?
Oh, gosh.
A lot.
For me, because I drive back to Georgia, yeah. For me, it's probably 60, something like that. Out of
somewhere
state,
in that range.
Not including Georgia. Out of states, probably for me, it's probably 60, and for JT, it's probably a little more.
Oh, man, that's incredible. So, Bubba, how are you able to swing that with work? I know you got a job, so how are you able to swing that many days? You save up all your vacation?
I'm old, and I've been there a long time. Yeah, that's
good recipe for success for getting PTO.
Absolutely. So I manage the control center for Georgia Power, and it's shift work. It's 24/7, so I work 12-hour days when I'm there. So all the vacation, all the holidays, everything combined, and put it all together and take off. And they don't mind me taking off because it's a quiet time of the year for my business. The lights don't go out very often in November, thank God. So it works out. In the spring and summer when it's bad, I'm there, so they're okay with it.
Don't let him lie to you much, because he's not there a lot in the spring and the summer either.
Well, that's true. I'm not there a lot then too. Yeah, I can find a way to get.
He's a traveling man.
Yeah. I'd rather be in Florida fishing or at the farm in Missouri in August than I would anywhere else. So
I guess you pay your dues over the years and you enjoy the fruits of your labor now.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
Oh, man, I look forward to that myself.
Yes.
Yep.
Hey, I got a question. I was going to say, I got a question about all these outfitters you guys are pulling. How do you go about finding these outfitters and just, that level of trust for who you will pick and who you'll use? How do you go about that process?
So that is.
I'm going to go back to Gary on this.
Yeah, that's where I come in. So when I am at work, and I probably shouldn't say this, but okay. So when I'm not at work,
nope, nobody listens to this anyway.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. So when I'm not at work, I spend a great deal of time on the computer and researching and when I find an outfitter, JT and I'll get to talking and pick a state that we want to do, next season. We want to try Ohio. And then I'll start researching it and digging and coming up with them. And JT will send me one that he's heard about and I'll research it. And so it's reviews, it's phone calls, it's getting them to send me aerials and looking at their ground and just try to make a good decision based off everything that I can put together and every review and people I can talk to. And then we go try them. And we've been lucky. We really hadn't been to a bad one. We've had one or two that I prefer not to go back to, but I don't know that we've had a bad one. So we've been really lucky and we've killed some good deer, but that's it. It's just research. And with the farms that we find it's me trying to find the farms through agents and then looking at the aerials and spending time online and talking to people and just, if you've got good woods and crops, you've probably got deer unless they've been hit with EHD. So trying to find that. And then if I find something close to JT, he'll run and look at it because he can be anywhere in the Midwest, in a reasonable drive time. So he'll go over and look at it and walk it, and then we'll try to take it down.
So when you're looking at
outfitters,
go ahead.
I was just going to say the Outfitters is just a lot of time of reading and talking and hoping for the best and trying to get one that does what we want to do. I don't want to go with one that runs 400 hunters through a year. I don't care how much ground they got. I don't want to be in a crowded lodge. Things like that you're looking for. How tight are they on people, allowing people to drink but not over drink, and the things that would bother me or irritate me. How strict are they on their minimums? Things like that. And then look at their pictures. Pictures tell all. If they're real pictures, that tells you everything. You see a bunch of guys on there with 110-inch deer. It's a problem.
Now, when you're looking at your aerial photographs, is there anything in particular you're looking for and favor? And do you also incorporate topo maps into that?
We do. Fortunately or unfortunately, it depends on what you like. JT loves it. I like rolling hills a little better. He loves the flat ground. So out west, the topos aren't quite as important, except on a few farms, because most of them are flat. So that don't always come into play. There's some places like Southern Illinois and up there in Shawnee National Forest is pretty hilly. And if you get into Wisconsin, Ohio like that, you're going to have some severe hills. But for the most part, if you're in a good whitetail area, it's going to be flat ground. But I look for, you're looking for woods. They've got to have at least some kind of cover on them, either a lot of CRP or some wood lots. And they need to be multiple wood lots. If you've got one wood lot and there's two of us hunting, you're gonna hunt the same two stands every day, and you go in the woods, and so you need a lot of options. So I'm looking for.
Yeah, and your wind's going to be wrong half the time, right? Yeah, I was going to say, and your wind's going to be wrong half the time if you don't have enough woods, right?
That's right. Yeah, you don't have options. Predominant wind out west is going to be a southwest wind, but it changes day to day to day. So you've got to have options to get into your stands, different stands to hunt, things like that. You got to think about all that. I don't want to get a farm that limit me and him to just two stands that the wind's going to be wrong on half the time. So I'm looking for multiple wood lots, multiple funnels, stand sites, on both sides of it, back sides, front sides, depending on the wind, on your food plots, your crop ground, preferably with water. EHD is really prevalent in the Midwest, so you need water. You need a creek or lakes, and hopefully big enough they're not going to dry up. Things like that are really important when you're looking at trying to pick an area out.
How much importance are you placing on the food aspect of it?
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. But
I say a lot, right?
Yeah, a lot. But it's out there. If crops are not on your ground, they're going to be right beside you. So
yeah, as long as there's food in the area, you're okay, right?
That's right. Yeah, if you've got the wood lot and the crops are around you but not yours, you're fine. But you'll find some places. I think, Jay, we found it in Kansas, in southern Kansas. We rented it 1,200 acres there or something like that. There's no food on it, no food around it, nowhere. It was just all pasture ground. And
that's
so
right.
that, we didn't see a lot of deer, but there wasn't a lot of food. We seen a couple of big deer, but it was hard hunting and very limited. But there's just no food anywhere. So
yeah, it was very hit and miss. That's right.
Yep. So that's one thing I try to pick out on a farm. Hopefully it's got crops, which most of them we lease do have crops. And if not, then it's surrounded by crops. But very important for sure.
So I know hunting in the South here, a lot of times when I'm looking at property, I'm looking for like low areas and either creek bottoms or swampland or that kind of stuff, where, mature deer would be relating to water more. Is that something you're looking for in the Midwest as well, or is it kind of a different dynamic?
I think we lost you for a minute.
Yeah, I got you. I heard it. I'm not necessarily, he was asking Jay if we're looking for swamp bottom and things like that, like you would in Georgia. Not necessarily. You're looking for creeks and for water, but you're looking for wood lots. They're not that big most of the time. Most of the time you're hoping they're thick enough that they've got bedding in them. If there's no bedding, you're not going to hold the deer. So you've either got to have CRP or bedding. But as far as swamp bottoms, I don't know that how would you answer that, Jay?
We don't see as much of it up here. Right.
No.
Yeah, we don't see nearly as much of that's right. None of the swamp lands, lowlands that we had in Georgia, middle Georgia, Alabama, that kind of thing. But, we, like you were asking about as far as topo goes, and Gary said it, you're looking for all of the normal terrain features that you look for anywhere in the country that you hunt. It's just that It's different because it's broken up by woodlots, and you got tighter funnels up here in the Midwest than you got in the South. You don't have all the big stands of pine forest, that kind of thing. So the swampy areas that you're asking about, it doesn't come into play as much. However, if you got a river bottom, Gary's always been a fan of huge river bottom bucks. So anytime you got river bottom, you've always got to be able to hunt that area, though.
Absolutely. And the farm we had in southern Illinois was on the Little Wabash River. It was all river bottom dirt. And what you get there is when it floods every year, so you get extremely high minerals, so that the antlers tend to be bigger. But what you lose with the flooding is you lose the thick stuff, because it don't have time to thicken back up before it goes back underwater. So your understory is not as thick. So the deer usually.
I was going to say, you do have, when you've got the river bottom like we had in southern Illinois, is you've got high ground. If you ever get a chance to hunt high ground, you can do like I did on that 3 days in January, when every day I saw, 60 or 70 deer for 3 days. So 60 or 70 deer each day for 3 days. Right.
Goodness.
That's insane.
Oh, and then some, because the bottom goes underwater. So all the deer come up on the hilltops, and you're up there with them.
Now, is this on your lease?
That was on what we had in southern Illinois before we lost the lease and sold the lodge. Yes.
Right.
Well, let me ask another.
That was ground that flooded a lot.
What about maps? I mean, most guys that know what they're doing, we're all kind of looking for the same features of whether it be topography or pinch points or funnels or whatever it might be. How concerned are you that other hunters are looking at the exact same features you're looking at and picking those same tree stands before you get there and possibly have worn those stands out? Or is that something you can ask the outfitter before you go? But how does that work out for you guys?
Let me jump in
go ahead,
a little bit about this. Is that as far as an outfitter goes, sometimes you're going to run into that no matter what you do, because if they're a full-fledged outfitter, they're going to run a lot of hunters, and not always a lot. I mean, we got one outfitter in Iowa that we're going to this year that it's a Broken Brow Outfitters, and Austin runs what, Gary, 600 a year, 800 a year, 1,000 a year, something like that.
Yeah, at the most, his limit is 4 per hunt, and I think he only runs like 3 or 4 hunts, and they're rarely full, so he don't run many.
So you're not gonna have a huge problem with that. However, you're absolutely right that if you're going to an outfitter or you're hunting public land, everybody's looking at the same amount of land, everybody's looking at the same stands and hoping they're the first one there, or they're the one that's there when the deer's moving. We typically only do one outfitter a year. We've kind of called it, I hate to use a cliche, but we called it the outfitter spotlight every year. So, most of the time we're on private land, where it's just us and a handful of other people that are hunting it, just like any other lease in Georgia or Florida or wherever you're hunting at.
Yeah, most of your outfitters, somebody else is going to be in the stand that you're hunting previously and after you. But if they're running limited numbers, like our Kansas outfitter runs very limited numbers, there's a real good chance he's got enough ground, he's splitting it up, that he's not running a hunter on the stand that we're getting in before we get there, and maybe just 1 or 2 after. He takes care of his hunters. He wants you to kill out just as bad as you want to kill, because you're going to be a repeat customer. But, people are going to be in those stands, but and you don't go and pick the stands you want to get in for the most part. Before you get there, he already knows the area he's going to want you to hunt, and he's going to maybe have 6, 8, 10 stands on one farm. That'll be your farm for the time you're there, and the stands you hunt will be determined by the wind. So he already knows that.
That's exactly right. Yeah, because a lot of cases, and this is maybe getting off on a little bit of a lost lead here, but what Gary just talked about is a lot of cases, a lot of people will go to an outfitter and know that they've got 6,000 acres or whatever it is, and in their minds they want to see the whole farm. Well, they're not going to see the whole farm in 5 days, and if they do, the chances of them killing the deer is not real good. Most of the time, the outfitter is going to have them concentrate on a small area, and 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 stands total. They're going to jump around for wind area or for the specific or the right wind that they need.
So when you guys go to these outfitters, obviously you guys do a lot of DIY stuff on your own. When you go to these outfitters, is that just kind of like a week off from that and you listen to wherever they say and sit where they want?
Yes. Yes. My God, please hang a stand for me.
Yeah. Oh Lord, yeah. By the time both of us, I'm 55 and he's 50 this year, and so this is our AARP season. 13th season is going to be AARP season, and by the time we hang 30 or 40 Millennium lock-ons in Missouri, and move them around and do all that, we can't wait to get to the first outfitter for a break. That's exactly right.
I don't blame you.
But now a good outfitter they'll let me look at the aerial photo of the farm we're going to. Let's talk about it, pick out the stands. And once we repeat 2 or 3 times with that outfitter, like Kansas this year and Iowa, I already know the farms and have studied them all year. I look at them continually. We were out there in Kansas turkey season. I talked about a spot that I had seen on the aerial that we really needed. We walked over there and looked at it. Turned out to be a great spot, and he's hanging us a stand there. So they'll work with you and let you see where you're going. And if you got a climber and you say, hey, I'm seeing deer regularly 100 yards this direction, let's go over there and hang a climber. They'll do that. They'll work with you.
So we could do a whole separate podcast on this, I'm sure, but could you give us a rundown of the different states you guys have hunted over the years, and maybe like a summary of like how somebody from the South could relate to it if they're looking to do an out-of-state hunt? I mean, you could even group them up or something, but just tell us what states you've hunted and what the best parts are.
Yeah, and add in your favorites as well. I'd love to hear that. Like, what state you would recommend to a Southern hunter to go to and hunt?
Go ahead, Jay. Let me think on it.
Yeah, think on that for a minute. If you're if you're hunting with an outfitter and going out of
state, I'd say, just somebody that wants to go out of state. Maybe it could be either or. They're going to lease some ground on their own, or they're going to get an outfitter.
If you're going to lease some ground on their own, I would suggest doing something in either, if they're coming from, let's say they're coming from Georgia, and I'll speak from that just because that's where we were from. Personally, I would suggest to do something that's as close to home as possible, because if they're going to be leasing ground, man, they really need to be there. Otherwise, it's going to be hit and miss. They need to be able to visit the property as best as possible. Need to be able to get there, and if they want to hang cameras, if they want to hang stands, if they want to scout it, and they want to get a good feel for it, because most people are only going to have 7 days total vacation, or 10 days, or whatever it's going to be, and they've got other responsibilities that they've got to take care of at home. So the closer to home is going to be the better. If they're going to be going to an outfitter, in my mind, I would always suggest Kansas for an outfitter for a Southern hunter to go to, just because it's such a different hunt than what we had in Georgia. The terrain is so different. The possibility of seeing, a giant deer, of course, always exists, but also seeing a huge number of deer. And you're also, something we hadn't talked about, but you're also in an area where the people just absolutely love and cherish the deer hunters. So that's what I would suggest is Kansas if you're going to an outfitter, but if you're going to be leasing ground as close to home as possible, whether it be Kentucky or Southern Illinois, if you can find it, although it's impossible. Southern Illinois, Southern Indiana, almost impossible to find land in.
Yeah, I pretty much agree completely with that. I would say close to home because of the travel, because you're going to want to go in August and scout and hang some stands, get your cameras up. You're going to want to be able to hit it a couple of times in October, November. The Midwest, the first week of January, if you've got food left over, like beans left standing or something like that, or a green food plot, there's nothing any better. If you told me to pick a week in November or a week in January, and that's the only time I could hunt the Midwest, I'd go the first week of January. It's incredible. All of them yard up, and you're subject to see a herd of 100 deer. It's just incredible.
If you got food, right.
If you got food, you got to have food. If you don't have food, you're going to sit there and twiddle your fingers and freeze to death because it's brutal cold. You got to have food. So if I was going to do an outfitter, then logistics I would take out of the picture because you're going to go for 1 week. And I would go, my first choice would be Iowa. My second would be Kansas. The reason my first choice would be Iowa is because the out-of-state archery draw is so difficult in Iowa if you go into a good zone. So you're only going to go once every 3 years. So leasing a farm is really, it's just not financially smart to lease one if you're only going to be there 1 week every 3 years. You don't have time to scout. You don't have time to do any of that. It's a long haul from Georgia. So get a solid outfitter, go with an outfitter, draw your tag, and go enjoy your hunt. Kansas, same way. It's a long haul. Go out there, and it's not over the counter. It's a draw system, but you're almost guaranteed. We've never not drawn a tag in Kansas. It's like Illinois. They got a lot of extras you're going to draw every year. but it's a long haul from Georgia. You know, it's what, Jay, 16 hours or something for me to straight to Kansas. So
I don't know. I live in the Midwest.
yeah. No, I can rub that in. Appreciate that too.
Hey, and what region?
I stopped halfway.
What region are you guys putting in for Kansas? I know that it's broken up into different blocks.
I don't have a
this
clue.
one is, yeah, I know, right? I think we draw, what is it, 6 and 14? Because you draw two areas,
Yes,
two zones.
So. Right.
I think it's 6 and 14. I think one of them is 6, but it's right. We're 30 minutes north of Wichita.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, you're central, eastern Kansas. But
we had another guest, Tony Smotherman, recommend Kansas to us as well because he said the muzzleloader season there is like right during the rut. I think he said that, and just a really good opportunity if you're primarily
the rifle season is. I don't know about the muzzleloader.
Right.
I think he was saying that the muzzleloader was in the early season, so they were easy to kill on food.
September.
Yep.
That's exactly right. You got an early muzzleloader in Kansas, but then the rifle is like Kentucky. It comes in right center of the rut. Which if you're like us and you only bow hunt, then it's irritating because all of a sudden you got to wear orange and you got bullets slinging everywhere. But
hey, Bubba. Hey, Bubba.
Yeah.
Hey, Bubba.
Right.
You killed one with a rifle last year.
That's true. That's true. I know. There's reason behind that, but you're exactly right. I had to break out and do it that way. And I felt guilty after I did it, but you're exactly right. I broke down and did it.
I don't mind it a bit. If I decide to break out a rifle, I'm okay with it.
So since you guys are ribbing each other, do y'all use crossbows?
No, I have never, but I wouldn't mind it.
That's cool.
Yeah. I feel like it's coming because both my shoulders are destroyed, so I know it's coming, but it hadn't got there yet. But yes, due to my back injury last year, dragging out somebody's extremely large deer, biggest one I've ever put my hands on, and it wasn't mine. I couldn't draw a bow and I couldn't even walk, so I had to drive the Ranger out in the middle of the field, sitting in a chair over to the side of it with a rifle for the first time in 10 years. And just so you know, I was able to shoot one time and drop it in its tracks after 10 years of not shooting a gun. So,
all right.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I got to hear the story of this giant deer now.
Well, that was so. I'll tell you what led up to my back, and then I'll let JT tell you the giant deer because he can't wait to use one Q word in that story.
By the way, it's my drop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a drop. Yeah. So the day before, the first day we were there in Kansas, I got in the stand that I missed one out of the first day the year before, and clipped a limb on. Got in it, saw a solid booner that morning. Just like the year before, the first morning, same area. He was almost in the same tracks. Don't think it was the same deer. And then we sit all day. We rarely come out of the stand. We usually sit all day, every day. And that evening, probably an hour before dark, solid 140s, 10 comes out, 5 or 6 year old deer, whatever he was, I don't even remember now. And I was able to actually find him and drop him. So I had to drag him about 100 yards to the truck. And I think that's what hurt my back, but it didn't show up that night. So the next day, what was it? The next evening, wasn't it?
Next evening, yeah, right at dark. Second evening. Or dead dark, actually.
Second evening. Yep. So the second evening, and then I'll let Jay tell his story of what took me out completely.
I shot a drop tine and he couldn't drag him out of the woods.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. There you go.
You are good friends.
Actually, I shot a great deer. It was my biggest 8 ever. Not my biggest deer ever, but definitely my biggest 8-point ever. And he did have
body
a
deer ever
drop
by far.
Biggest body deer by far. What was he on the hoof? Do you remember what he was, Gary?
274.
274. Yeah, 274 on the hoof.
Oh man.
Yeah, just
and I didn't know that he had a drop when I shot him. I didn't know he was a big deer when I shot him. I just knew that I was getting ready to shoot, and I shot the deer. And we found him the next morning. He didn't run 7,500 yards or whatever it was, but he had fallen down or tried to cross a creek, and he went down in a real deep ditch, probably 30 feet straight down on both sides, and found him the next morning in the creek. And got some great pictures, by the way, with his reflection off the creek, everything else, having a good time, me down in the creek with him, all that. And Gary and Steve brought the 4-wheeler over with the winch on it. And we pulled him up out of the creek, or they pulled him. I stood there and watched, got him up out of the creek.
He watched. I guess that's the luxury of killing the drop. You get to watch while everybody else works.
Yeah.
Yes. And in fact, I got a great video of it, but a video of him getting winched across the creek and floating down the creek and all that good stuff. And then Gary and I were trying to lift his head up just a little bit, pulling him out with a 4-wheeler, try to keep his cape off, or try to keep his nose off the ground.
Else here? I lost JT.
Can you hear me?
Hello.
I can hear you guys fine. I don't know what happened with Mike. Mike, you still there?
Yeah, I cut out for a minute there. Sorry, guys.
Okay, cool.
Well, hopefully you got all
That's
that.
all right.
I got it all.
Yeah, we were dragging him behind the 4-wheeler and trying to keep his nose off the ground, and that's when Bubba just locked up immediately and went straight to his knees. So my
Good
drop
move.
caused him to have back surgery.
Oh.
Yep.
And become
It
a
was
rifle
bad,
hunter.
too. And become a rifle hunter. I don't
Yes.
know which is worse. Yeah, I had to break and shoot a gun or have surgery. So,
Just so y'all know that up until about 2008 or so, he was a rifle hunter all his life.
Yeah, how did that evolution come about? When you guys started seeing a lot more
Actually,
success, did you switch to the bow full time?
It was 2000. Let's see, it was 2007. So JT had started hunting with me and my daddy had a lease in Georgia for 31 years in Heard County, and JT hit us up on an ad because we needed a member. The day in 01 maybe, 01.
Yeah,
and he hit us up and joined our club.
Right.
Yep, and that's when we started posting on Woodies, and he was already starting Woodies with Woody, and so he joined our club, and that's how we met. And I was a gun hunter. My dad was a gun hunter all his life. He taught me to hunt, and I was gun hunting from the time I was 10 years old, and had the same love and obsession for hunting, but it was always a gun. It was too hot in Georgia to bow hunt. He didn't bow hunt. I didn't know anything about it. And then JT comes along, and he had always bow hunted, and so he starts pushing me to do two things: bow hunt and turkey hunt. Usually just
and sitting a lock on
during deer season. Yeah, and sitting a lock on. 3 things I had never done. And I was old school with my father building wooden stands, and so he pushed me to do all that, and I picked up a bow and started learning to shoot it, and he was extremely instrumental in teaching me how to shoot a bow and the ins and outs of it. Didn't kill anything with it until Indiana. That small farm we had in southern Indiana was the first one. I think that was what, 07, 08, 07?
I think 08. I think it was 08.
That was it.
I got a picture of you killing your first buck or your first deer ever with your bow, and you're standing there with your arms raised in the air in the dark.
That's right. Yep. It was great. So after
the problem is it happened to be a 146-inch deer.
Yeah, first ever bow kill, 146-inch pin.
That's a pretty good way to get going.
Yeah.
And that's Georgia, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, that was
Indiana.
No, that was Indiana. Okay, Well, that's a good deer for anywhere.
And we had, it was on from there. We muzzleloader hunted a couple more times up there, but then we got to where we were just getting archery tags, and it just kind of evolved into bow only. I quit counting, but I probably killed 100 plus deer with a rifle, and I just, I love the challenge of them up close, and nothing like getting a mature buck, regardless of what's on his head, at 15 yards. There's just nothing like it, and so I just, I'm not against gun hunting by any means. I just, every year we buy gun tags. I just don't pick it up. I always pick up the bow instead of the gun, and Jay does the same thing.
So, do you guys have any new properties you're going to be hunting this year?
No.
All right, so
no.
maybe we'll just talk about, let's say, the last time you guys got a new piece of ground. Can you walk us through how you picked the area, how you negotiated the lease, how you scouted, set up stands? Just kind of walk us like A to Z into like killing a deer. So, but if we could start out at how you pick an area and contact the landowners and all that stuff, I'd love to hear about that.
So.
Yeah, I'm gonna refer to Gary right quick, and I guess Gary, we'll go back to Ted's farm.
Yeah. So so most of the ground we have found is through agents. So like Base Camp and Huntley's Network, things like that, and then I get to know the agents personally, and I spend a lot of time all year talking to them. And if I see a lease they've just gotten, I call up, talk to them about it, get the details, look at the aerials, decide if it's even worth our time. So the way I come across a lot of them. Then there's some smaller leasing agents and networks out there that I use and go through, and a little bit of word of mouth through local folks, but most of it is through these agents that I've gotten to know and built a relationship with. And you know, if you do that, they'll tell you, is this a solid farm, not a solid farm? Don't waste your time, yada, yada, yada. You know, you can pick up that stuff. So I guess the last new one we got would have been the big one we're on now, Missouri. And this farm actually belongs. We kind of
slipped up on this one, right?
Yeah, we had a lease in Missouri. This will be our third year. So 2 years ago, we had a lease about 2 hours from this one in north central Missouri, and it wasn't doing really well. And so I was talking to the agent. We had some problems. You couldn't get into the wood because most farmers don't leave you a cut between the crop and the wood line, so you can't get around. If they hadn't cut corn, you can't get to a stand. And so it was a problem. And he said, "Are you interested in some more ground? And do you know who Larry Potterfield is?" And I assume both of y'all know Larry Potterfield. Midway USA.
Yeah, Midway. Yeah,
can't miss Larry.
Shopping guy.
Yep. And he said, that's exactly right. He said, you know, I lease and take care of all of Larry's ground. If you're interested, he's got a new farm right here outside of Columbia that he don't want to drive to. It's too far. He's got 20,000 acres in Columbia, and this one's a little bit too far to drive. So we jumped in the truck, and it was an hour and a half south of where we were, and run down there and looked at it. And it was during hunting season. Right. It was, during season, probably around October, 25th, 6th, something like that. And it was 1,144 acres. Yep. It was 1,144 acres, but it was cut up into 3 farms. Well, I knew I couldn't afford, you know, there's no way me and Jay could afford 1,144 acres at October 26th, and we wasn't going to find hunters that late. So we took a 190-acre piece right in the center 2 years ago, and I just paid him on the spot for that 190 acres and said, let's take it. And we'll see how, because it laid out beautifully. Lots of big timber on it, lots of water, perfect farm. Had a 50-foot border all the way around all the crops. Larry Potterfield owns it, and the agent said all Larry wants is to have a perfect whitetail ground. He don't care about the crops. Well, you don't hear that anywhere in the Midwest. Everybody in the Midwest cares about the crops. They don't care about the deer hunting. Crops is first because that's where the money's at. And I thought this, you know, we talked about it and said we got to get in on this. So we got the 190. Well, luck would have it, nobody during that late in the season, because it was very expensive, nobody leased the rest of the farm that year. So come January, we worked out a deal and took the whole farm down. So that's how we ended up on the one that we're on right now in Missouri. That's the last new ground that we got. And that first year, saw one deer that we wanted to kill, and waited and waited and waited and saw him. I don't know how many times, Jay. I saw that, 3, 4, 5 times.
You probably saw him easy 3 or 4 or 5 times from the same stand.
Yeah. Right. Same stand at least, and we picked him out. That's the one we want. Every time we went back, want that deer, and ended up killing him. It was funny with Gary, because he normally Gary won't hunt a stand with an iffy wind. He is extremely wind conscious and one of the best hunters in the world. But man, he wanted that deer so bad. I remember him talking about, well, I can probably make it work with that wind. I can probably make it. Yeah. Maybe. But if he comes up 20 foot to the left, you know, I'll be okay with that wind. So
right.
I was trying every way in the world to get that deer, and ended up killing him.
But he ended up killing him.
Wasn't giant. He was just an old deer. He was an old, mature deer, and that's what I was interested in. And then last year, we set aside, 3 deer off our cameras that we wanted to kill, and we're going to protect the entire farm. We brought in a couple of extra members and to help us, because it's a big farm, and we killed those 3 deer. So we got lucky and actually got the 3 that we set out to kill, and we didn't want to touch anything else. And then this year, hopefully, we'll do the same thing again. But now it's turning into a strong farm. The guys had it prior to us. Us were shooting everything on it. If it had fur, they were killing it. What Larry's done, and the food plots and the crops and hinge cutting and, you know, letting the wood thicken up, the farm I think it's turning into be just a solid whitetail heaven. So this year y'all should see a lot of results and a lot of good pictures from that farm, and hopefully some good dead deer.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
So JT, how does when you guys get that new ground, then you get the lease, how does it typically hunting go? Is the first year kind of a throwaway because you've never been out there, or do you get out there first scouting?
Yeah, we don't do a massive amount of scouting in the off season, just because, first of all, the logistics involved with Gary coming up from the south, and then the other thing is both of us work full-time jobs all year long and put in a lot of hours during the year. But we kind of know what to look for. First, Gary, of course, Bubba's always on the maps and looking, and got a handful of spots to pick out. And I do the same. I don't do it as in depth as he does, but got a handful of spots that we want to pick out. And once we get to the farm, we immediately go look at those areas. We take a quick ride around the farm, go look at those areas, and already have it in our mind. This is going to work. And just from the past experiences, we hang stands, hunt, and kill deer, or see deer anyway. If we don't always kill them, we see a lot of deer, but we don't always kill them. But
and that's the thing with
past
having a bow in your hand.
experiences will tell us. Yeah, always with a bow in your hand. You're not always going to kill them, of course. But
now, I imagine you guys have always been serious deer hunters. How much has the I guess hunting with each other and being close hunting partners actually infused more passion into your deer hunting and even more success into what you're doing every year?
Oh,
man,
very
you wouldn't
much.
believe how often I have to tell him to get out of bed to go get in a tree.
Sounds like my brother.
Yeah, yeah, buddy.
Or
It's only 'cause it's been
really and
60
truly,
days, I can't walk.
how about the time in Nebraska, Bubba, that I threw the stand over in the bushes, said I'm done, I'm going to the house, and he wouldn't let me go to the house. So there you go.
Right, yeah, and that was minus 8 degrees with 10 inches of snow and a 35-mile-an-hour wind.
Oh man,
Yes,
that
it was
doesn't sound
brutal.
fun to me.
That's
And I
brutal.
did, man. I threw
Yeah,
my
go
hands
ahead
up,
with-
threw the stand on the ground. I said I'm done. But
So, Jay, you want to take that one on his question?
what's that?
Yeah,
you want to take that one on his question of how it strengthened up our hunting and what the difference has been?
Yeah, I mean it's strong. I mean, yeah, there's no way to describe it. Both of us know exactly what we're thinking. We both, we argue all the time because we're both, we're both opposite types of people. There's nothing that we have in common other than deer hunting, I guess, and obviously being outdoorsmen, that kind of thing. And we bounce ideas off of each other and push each other and say, yeah, you got to do it like this, or if he says he's going to do it like this, I'll have a different opinion, or he'll have a different opinion of mine. And we definitely push each other to be there. And, yes, I hear it all the time. You're living the dream, you're living the dream, you're living the dream. But it's also brutal when you're in the tree that many days and that many days in a row and away from the house that many days and completely disconnected from your normal home life. And we definitely push each other to stay at it, I guess you would say.
And we eat a lot of tags. I mean, there's a lot of seasons that we eat 6-7 tags, so it's.
Oh yeah.
Folks tell us how easy it is out west. Well, that's not the case by any stretch of the imagination.
It's been a lot of years that I had 7 tags in my pocket. Right.
Oh gosh, yeah. But,
I bet y'all pass a lot of good deer too, though.
We really do. We let a lot walk. We usually
I miss a lot of
pick
good
out
deer.
what we want. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have just us hunting together, and you ask, has it improved our hunting and success? And it's vastly done that. I mean, I hunt more probably, but I don't hunt Georgia, so the days may equal out over what I did all my life. But the size of the deer, the number of the deer, I mean, I've got, JT's probably right there with me, I think I've got 16 Pope and Youngs, 1 Booner, and and all that has happened since we started going out west in 2005. Prior to that, there was probably 1 Pope and Young from Georgia, but everything else has picked up since then. And him and I, we're polar opposites at most things in life, although we're both pretty conservative. But other than that, we're polar opposites. But when it comes to deer hunting, we're on the exact same page. We walk into an area, we know where we want to be. We sit there and go over and over. And I mean, it's like 2 engineers out there figuring out exactly which tree, exactly which way it's facing, exactly the trimming. It's a whole process.
Yeah,
that takes a while.
You would not believe how long it takes to stand in a spot to pick a daggum tree to be in. I mean, it's a crazy thing because a lot of times I'll think about it and I'll point at a tree and I'll go sit on the Ranger for a minute or two thinking to myself, yep, that's the tree we're going to be in. And then Gary's still standing there, and 30, 40 minutes later, we pick out 2 more trees, and then we go back to the first tree. I mean, it's a strange concept that it takes that long to pick 1 tree.
It really, but we feed off each other doing it. It's just, we end up at the right answer most of the time. Very seldom do we, we have to move it somewhere else, or or we made a mistake on it and it's the wrong tree, we usually come out on the right side of it. But
although every once in a while I'll hang one like the brush pile stand last year where you hunted it. You said you were looking at the ground the whole time.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you, I was 20 years a lineman for Georgia Power, so heights and all that don't bother me. And he'll hang one every now and then that make me squeamish. And there is no way, but most of the time we work it out, just right. And it's for us to stay together that long, 5-6 weeks on the road in the same camper, hotel room, truck, day in and day out. There's not many people that I could do that with, because you got to get along. We argue, but we don't. It's not personal. We don't hurt each other's feelings, so we get along and we end up with the same goals, and it's all good. And it's rare, I think, that you find somebody that you can spend that much time with and not kill each other. But we do it, and our love for hunting drives us. We both think of it exactly the same.
So other than the checking maps ahead of time and kind of narrowing down different funnels, I guess, to look into, what do you guys look for in a tree stand? How do you find that perfect tree?
Well, a couple of things in my mind. The first thing is I do everything I can not to have the sun dead in my face, and then do everything I can to figure out, and again, everything's being bounced off Bubba at the same time, but if I'm there by myself, this is the things I'm thinking. What winds can I get away from, or what winds can I get away with that I'm going to be comfortable with sitting here and knowing that I'm going to bust as few deer as possible? And because I can't tell a west wind from a east wind from a south wind, I just got to point and say I'm going to be okay if it blows from that particular direction. But I don't want the sun in my face if at all possible. I want as much cover as possible, and the wind has got to be right, because I'm the same way with Gary. Man, the wind is 100%. I hear people in Georgia, Facebook, and GON everywhere else say all the time that Midwest deer don't care about the wind, and they're crazy. It doesn't matter. Deer in the world cares about the wind. So
that's right. They live their life by the wind. And I agree with what he said. I'm looking for something. You don't want the sun in your face. You want it in the deer's face and behind you. You want a backdrop, something that's going to break you up. You don't want to stick out like a sore thumb, especially with a bow. You got to stand up and draw. You need some kind of cover around you. You need to trim as little as possible, but still be able to get your arrows through your lanes. So I'm looking for things like that. And like Jay said, they're going to come from different directions. You're not going to say every deer is coming from right there. So you've got to, what's your least likely to get busted on your best wind? And that's where you want to be. Well, and then access. You hear the breweries talk about it all the time. In and out, being able to get in and out without busting deer out. How you going to do that? If you got a perfect place on a point in the middle of the field, but you can't get to it without busting deer, you might as well stay at camp and waste your time.
Right.
How close are you guys trying to get to bedding areas?
We got a little different opinion on that.
Yeah, you don't. I don't want to be in it. We don't want to go in the woods and bust them out. You don't want to have to walk through it, but depending on the wind, I don't mind getting within 100 yards of it, but most of the time we're going to stay on field edges. We don't hunt a lot in the woods. We got 1 or 2 stands in the woods, but we're going to be on the edges waiting for them to come out for the most part.
Because the biggest issue within the woods, and I would. This is a little bit of a difference. The biggest issue within the woods is you can't control what you're going to bust and what you're not going to bust. If you're going in and out of the field edges, then a lot of times you can control your ingress and your exits, that kind of thing. And it depends on the time of year. If it's dead in the middle of the rut, it don't really matter if you're in a bedding area or not. But if you're in late October, you're in middle November, late November, when the rut's already starting to lag off, then you want to back off of those a little bit, because otherwise you're going to bust deer coming and going no matter what you do.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And again, we've only got just a small number of stands that are in the woods. We hunt the edges because you know where they're coming to. They're coming to the food, and they're going to hit your crop fields. And so we really hammer those edges, or just slightly in the woods. They may be 20, 30, 40 yards in the woods off the edges. But if there's thick areas that we know are bedding areas, then we try our best to stay out of those and stay away from them.
Stay out as much as possible.
How many?
Don't look at them.
Sorry about that. How many times will you guys actually hunt the same tree stand? So are y'all worried about wearing out the same spot, or will you actually go in and hunt the same stand 3, 5, or even more times in a season?
It depends on the deer. It depends on the wind, right?
Yeah, depends on the wind and the deer and your results there. If you've busted them, if you've busted big deer out of it, you probably need to do something different. So it just depends. If you've gotten in and out of it without busting anything, and you're hunting, like last year, I hunted one particular deer, and we had his picture at that stand. So every time the wind was right, I'd try to go over there and hunt it, not bust anything coming in, not bust anything that I know of going out, and ended up killing him there. So it just depends. But I don't know that it hurts them hunting it a good many times, as long as you're playing the wind right and doing it right. That's at least that's my opinion on it. I think you're okay with it.
Yeah, I agree. Biggest thing in my mind is I hate busting deer going to and from the stand. And if you're busting them close to that stand area, then they might not know that you're in that tree. They might not know you're in that particular area, but they're going to continue to avoid it. If you're going in every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning and you're busting deer every single morning in that general area, then they're going to start avoiding that area. If you kick your dog enough times, he's not going to be right there available for you to kick.
Exactly right. And and a trick out there.
I don't kick dogs, by the way.
He does kick a lot of dogs. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, an hour in, the truth starts coming out.
Yep. I didn't know we were talking to coon hunters.
It didn't take long either for the truth to come out. So, but you can out there, if you can't get in, if you've got a stand you really want to hunt, that's going to be a deer around every time, especially around these crop fields. Don't walk to it. Take a Ranger to it, a four-wheeler, a tractor, right up to the tree, and get out. Let the tractor or let the Ranger sit there till you get in the tree, and then drive off. Have somebody drop you off. You don't bust anything, because the deer are so used to the farm equipment out there that they don't even pay attention to it. And so that you'll have outfitters do that as well. They'll drive you right up to the tree and sit there with it running while you climb in, and then they drive off. And the deer think you're gone, they come right back out.
And it's not them being lazy or you as a human or hunter being lazy or whatever else. It's just being kind of a smart tactic. I mean, I can't think of how many times over the years, especially last few years, because I tagged out before Gary did. A lot of times in the last few years, and after he did too. But I'd be sitting on the Ranger, just glassing fields or whatever, and have deer within 20, 30 yards of me eating. Because they don't pay any attention and I'm sitting on a Ranger with no windows and doors on it. So they don't pay any attention to any of the farm equipment. So that's actually a great tactic, just drive to the tree, have somebody else drive on off and leave you there. And the deer don't pay any attention to the farm equipment.
It's amazing how fast they come right back out.
Yeah.
So do you guys follow any type of scent control regimen? I mean, y'all wearing scent lock suits? Are you spraying down, or are you taking care of clothes or ozonics? Are y'all doing anything like that, or are you just playing the wind?
Yes and no.
Yes and yes.
Yes, we take care of our clothes, we take care of our body, we take care of our odor and everything else as best we can. We play the wind, of course, as best as we possibly can. But I've said it for as long as I can remember, that no doubt in my mind that if any deer, it doesn't matter what deer it is, gets a whiff of your scent, they're either gonna bolt, they're not gonna pay any attention to it, or they're gonna ease off. But they always know you're there. It don't matter what you've done to take care of your scent, in my mind. And they don't always act, and there's no rhyme or reason as to why they act up. And it doesn't matter if it's a grown deer or a baby deer. They always know you're there. Well, not babies, but they always know you're there.
And that's exactly right. I mean, we go to a lot of trouble with the scent, and I bought the ozone bag and all that nonsense. It's just extra help. But if you don't play the wind, all you do in the world, you will not cover up your scent. I don't care what you do. You have got to play the wind. So I think a smart hunter uses all of it, every advantage you can to try to get it right. But like you said, they're still going to get you. Deer are going to get you. Some are going to be downwind of you. They're in the woods and they live there. They're not going to come exactly how you want them to every time. But you do the best when you can with it. But we certainly use scent control, and then the wind is most important.
Since
but it's
we're talking
amazing.
scent,
real reason.
Since we're talking scent, JT, I know you've got some interesting theories on peeing from the tree stand.
Absolutely, it's fact.
It don't bother them in the least. None. Zilch, zero, ever, none. I don't care what it is. They may know it's there, but it don't bother them. How's that for an interesting theory?
Well, how about attracting them though? Don't you say?
And it will. And if you ever want to attract a doe or a fawn to your stand, if they happen to be bedded down close by, which happens all the time, if you decide you want to attract them there, you get up and pee, or you don't have to get up, just pee, and they will invariably, when it's time for them to get up, they will stand up and they will come by and check out where you peed. Happens all the time.
Usually lick it.
Yes, they will lick it. They will eat the leaves. They will just snip. They will lick the base of your stand, or where your ladder is, where your stick ladder is, all the time.
No, I usually get a little better distance than the base of my stand, but
not me. I ain't straight down.
Not me. I don't get far carry on it.
Yeah.
You get my age, it don't carry very far.
Here's the thing: is that the old fella that taught me to hunt, which I did not start as a young fella. I started deer hunting when I was I think 17 or so. From a girlfriend's daddy invited me to go hunting, but he always taught me to pee in a bottle, and then when you come out of the woods, pour it out. And his reasoning behind it was because it made too much noise to pee from 20 feet up or wherever you were. Well, okay. Well, then I'm in the stand. And it probably happened about the time I started hunting with Gary, because, he caused me to pee a lot. And I was, I'm in a tree and it's November or whatever, and it's cold and frosty, and didn't have a bottle with me, and I went ahead and let go, and a deer came by and happened. I don't remember what it was, doe or buck or whatever, but came by and didn't pay any attention to it. And after that, I've never carried a bottle since then. And he, by the way, he always used to pour it in scrapes as he come out of the woods. I've done the same thing for a lot of years, or peed in scrapes or whatever else, and never thought anything about it. And just the deer don't pay any attention to it.
Nope. Can't tell you how many times we tell each other what just happened.
Very big picture.
Yeah, exactly. They don't understand. They don't
have a clue. Right.
They don't look up ever. So you pee, they'll rush it in the ground, sniff it, lick it, smell it, go on about their business. Don't bother them in the least.
So you guys do you primarily hunt all day during the rut, and then I guess early and late season, are you hunting just evenings with what we talked about, trying to avoid spooking deer?
No, we normally hunt mornings and evenings. Although it's, in my mind, if I was hunting really early season up here, such as September, like Kentucky Open last weekend, for instance, and if I was hunting that early, then I'd be over or so mornings and evenings, and this gets in, or as soon as we start seeing midday activity or start feeling that kind of midday activity turn, then we're okay with all day hunts.
So how do you guys avoid spooking the deer on the way in if you're hunting field edges? Are you coming through the timber to hopefully avoid them that way, or what's your strategy with that?
No, if it's midday, we'll come in. Yeah, it depends on where we're seeing them. But if it's midday, a lot of times you come in through the field, they're not there yet. They're back in the woodlots.
I was thinking in the mornings. Are you guys hunting inside the timber in the mornings typically?
We're usually field edges or just inside the timber in the mornings, and then out on the edges in the evening. But it just depends on the stand. It depends on where you're seeing the deer, where you think they're bedding at, how the wind is. Every one would be different how you would do your access to it, trying not to bust them going in. And every day is different. Because if the wind swaps on you, you got to come in from the other side. So, every stand would be different. And he's exactly right. JT's right. We get there in October, we're hunting mornings and evenings and getting out at, 11 or 12 o'clock, because we've usually got a stand or two to hang somewhere trying to get all of our stands in the trees. But once the rut starts, then especially if we're in Kansas or Iowa, we're sitting there all day long. We rarely come out unless we move to another tree really quick.
So it's kind of hit or miss whether you're going to sit the same stand the whole day. Like you might be hunting the whole day. Sometimes you'll switch midday depending on what you've been seeing.
Yeah, it depends on what we're seeing, and it'll be quick. I mean, I've killed all of my big deer, the booner, everything, all my big deer I've killed between 11 and probably 3. I mean, the booner was at 12:15. You just got to be in the tree midday. You can't come out of the tree, especially when the rut's on. You got to be there. But now early season, late season out there, January, you might as well sleep in because you're just about wasting your time. Your best hunts are going to be from 1 o'clock to dark. They're going to pile out in big herds in January at 1 or 2 o'clock. But you got to get there before they do. If you don't, you might as well give it up. Because you're not going to be busting out 10 deer. You're going to be busting out 50, 60, 80, or 100 of them.
Man, a little different than where I'm hunting here in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
If you're busting that many deer, that's the whole state.
Yep. At least the whole county.
Yeah.
And that's what you're getting, though. You're getting the whole area because they're coming to your food source. And if you find that favorite food source, you're getting all the deer, in at least for probably a couple of square miles right there. They're all coming.
Yeah, there was 1 year in January in Illinois that we had a record flooding or whatever, and we had some high ground. And when I drove to where I was going to park at, I was posting it live at the time that it was almost like driving through a farm. What am I trying to say? A game preserve, because there were so many deer. Yeah, cow pasture. I'm driving around the deer to get to the stand. And when I parked, they all blew out. And like Gary said, it was like busting out, 100 deer at the same time. And they didn't pay any attention to the truck, but the minute they got out of the truck, the woods erupted and the pasture erupted and everything else. So yeah, you never know what you're going to run into.
That's insane. You guys mentioned lock-ons earlier. I guess that's typically what you guys hunt out of. Do you basically, when you show up to the farm, you set up all your stands and you'll hop around to different lock-ons depending on the wind and that kind of stuff?
Yes.
It's brutal.
Yeah,
the first few days, bad.
We kill ourselves, and especially the older we're getting, because we're putting 20 or 30 lock-ons in the trees in the first week or so, and it works on us. But that's what we're primarily. This year we've got 4 ladders or something combined, I think. So we're going to go to a few ladders, but it's mainly lock-ons.
So you'll show up to a lease and spend a day or two just setting stands up, and then when you're done hunting, it's the same deal. You tear them all down and take them with you to the next state.
Oh yeah, but we'll spend more than a day. We'll spend 4 or 5 days putting them up, and then we can get them down in a day or two, but putting them up will take us at least 4, 5, 6 days.
Wow.
And the first few years we did it, it was real bad. The first few years that we were in this, I say the first few years, I don't know, the first 7, 8 years or whatever, we would go to a property, and the first 4 days or whatever would be hanging stands and hunting, and then hunt for 7 days, and then pull all the stands and go to another property. And a lot of it was sight unseen. So we've been on a lot of properties over the years that were sight unseen, and we'd show up, scout as fast as we could, spend 3 or 4 days hanging stands, and then hunt, and then spend 2 days pulling them and going to another farm.
Wow.
Yeah, it was brutal.
I guess you got to use lock-ons and stuff a lot up in the Midwest. There's not trees. You can just use climbers and stay mobile.
That's right. You can use climbers, but not as many. Right.
No, there's not a lot of straight trees because the wind blows just about all the time. It's rare that you don't have wind blowing, extremely rare. And so all the trees lean, everything leans, and they're not very tall.
Gary loves the wind too.
Oh yeah. Oh God. And it blows nonstop. Always blows.
So with spending so much time in the tree, do you guys have any like camo or clothing preferences you like to use?
Barefoot.
Yeah.
Couple Indians.
Famous for his barefoot toes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I do know you're famous for your barefoot pictures cooling off at least in the early season.
Not early
in the late season. Yeah, he'll do it when it's -8.
Yeah.
But as far as the camo preference, I don't think so. It's just a matter of what we like. It's as long as you're broke up. I don't know that it matters.
Same here. I don't know that it matters. Right.
Yeah.
I care much more about something that's windproof or something that's not going to be bulky, that kind of thing. I don't really care about the pattern itself. I really care about the quality of the clothing or something that's going to last me a long time.
Yeah, layering has become. I mean, him and I both rarely wear if ever, wear big coats. I can't even tell you that. I don't even know that we have in the last 6, 8, 9 years.
I don't own one yet. I don't own a big coat. Right.
Yeah, we don't have them. Even in, single digits, -8-degree temperatures, we're not wearing them. You layer up and you get the right clothing, and you don't need it. And you can't draw a bow with all that on anyway, so you've got to have the right clothing.
Do you guys have any particular favorite pieces of clothing or brands or anything that you guys use?
Oh, yeah. Mine, I can't speak for Jay, but mine, Jay, year before last, I bought some Under Armour tops and bottoms, the insulated pants and insulated jackets, but they're thin, but they're insulated, and they're fantastic. I can put a base layer Under Armour under them and a fleece in between it, and then that pants and jacket, and I'm good to go. And they're real lightweight. They fit tight. They're slim like a Sitka. The jackets fit real tight on you, but no problem with getting cold whatsoever.
How about
I
you,
wore
JT?
that real tight stuff back in my playing days.
Yeah. Now it's tight just because they don't come in those big sizes.
Yeah. You guys use any wool?
I use wool undergarments now, and I've changed it. I say boy, that sounded bad. Undergarments. I use wool base layers.
Is that merino wool?
Wool now.
I changed over to wool about the merino wool about probably 3 years or so ago, and I haven't touched my normal base layer since. So I've used the kind of the smart wool, merino wool below.
Well, unless you got any final questions, Adam, I'll give my favorite question. How about tree stand snacks? What do you guys like to eat up in the tree stand?
Jerry, go ahead.
Well, there's a good story on there, but mine is usually something simple. So we don't, I don't carry a lot. So it's a granola bar of whatever choice and a pack of crackers, and that's usually about it. If we're going to sit all day, then we'll make a quick sandwich or PB&J or something like that, and take with us a Ziploc. And yeah, exactly. And that's the story I was talking about. So we'll do something like that, just a sandwich, and that's about it. We've always got a couple of bottles of water and a thing of coffee with us, especially if we're sitting all day. But him and I both have our favorite granola bar. And what was it you were bringing last year so good? It was the pecans, wasn't it? Bag full of pecans.
Yes, bag of pecans. Yeah.
Oh man, holy cow, that was good.
I feel like there's nothing like a good sandwich if you're in an all-day sit, help you get through the rest of the day.
Oh yeah, well, there's a good story on that.
Yeah, well, we got to hear it. This is a podcast, so we got plenty of time to hear the stories.
Well, this one is so our outfitter in Kansas is fanatical scent control. I mean, he's fanatical. You don't leave the cabin unless you've had your scent-free shower. All your clothes have to spend a required amount of time in his ozone boxes. Before you get there, he cuts up fresh cedar limbs for everyone and puts them at there, because everybody's got their own little closet where you can hang all your stuff and your clothes. So he gives you your cedar limbs. He gives you a bag full of cedar shavings. And when you get out of the truck,
take with you.
Beat you all over the head with that cedar limb, and slap you in the face, rub it all over you, and wear you out. And I want, the first time he did it, I thought we was going to have a fist fight out in the dark out there in the middle of the night, because this guy's whipping me with a cedar branch. And he's doing it to get the scent off of me. I didn't know what the crap he was doing. So he does all of that. Well, then to fix a sandwich, he has leftover deer meatloaf from the night before and bread, and that's it, and Ziploc bags. And I said, it's 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, you got something I can squirt on this bread, like some hot sauce or mayo or something wet, anything to make it go down. He said, no, you can't have any condiments, because condiments got scent, so you can't do that.
What?
I said, you mean I got to swallow this big chunk of deer meatloaf and a piece of bread? He said, I'll take this bottle of water. You'll be all right. You have lost your mind. So I'm sitting up in the stand. We sit 12 hours out there. We don't come out. And I'm sitting up in the stand at lunch, texting JT, trying to choke down this, cold, greasy meatloaf with nothing on it. So we fixed that when we got back, and we went with him again this past year. JT bought a box of 1,000 or 5,000 packets of mustard and mayo.
off Amazon.
Yeah, so we snuck in these little condiment packets, in our backpack, and so we wouldn't know nothing about it. So we can go in the tree now and get lunch down without dying. They said, "Oh, that meatloaf's good. You don't need anything on it."
Yeah.
So yeah,
Is that going to be on your outfitter questions now? Your questionnaire you give them is if they're allowed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I have condiments?
Allowed, and I can't argue with him because he's put us on big deer every single time we've been with him. We're 100% kill with him, which with archery that's unheard of. So I can't argue with him. Yeah, he knows his stuff. But
yeah, considering in general we almost never kill a deer with an outfitter, so that worked out pretty good with him.
Yeah, I was going to say it must have been pretty good hunting for you guys to come back.
Yeah, we're going back this year. This is the third time in a row, so as long as he's putting me on them big deer, he can beat me with all the cedar branches he wants to. It works out. I'm okay with it.
Last year, he ran out of he ran out of bread last year or something. It was all real quiet in the house, because it's a family farmhouse, and all he had was hot dog buns. So we rolled up some meat, put in a hot dog bun, and I got a picture posted on Instagram. A picture of a hot dog bun with some meat in it and slathered in mustard. But you gotta have a good time either way.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. As far as snacks go, I mean, obviously, I eat just about anything on stand. I'm not really concerned about it because more than anything, like I said earlier, if a deer gets downwind of you, they're gonna smell you no matter what you do. You just gotta play the wind right. But whatever I'm hungry for, there was a post I made last year that all I found in my bag was a bag of Doritos and a bag of pecans, and there was nothing else in my bag. I don't know where I got the Doritos from, but most of the time I keep sandwiches in there. One time in Kansas, what was it, Bubba, back in 2012 or so, we stopped at McDonald's on the way, and I got 20 chicken McNuggets and some spicy mustard, and
that's right.
My backpack had a box of McNuggets in it, so who knows.
Yeah,
so I guess it's the little things when you've been hunting for 20 some days straight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you gotta have a good time. Biggest thing is a thermos of coffee and a bottle of water.
Yeah, a granola bar and some coffee, and you can stand just about the whole day.
Yep.
Well, it's getting late. I know you guys probably have some really good stories, so I wanted to maybe wrap it up with maybe a story each. I guess it could either be like a favorite buck kill or something, or maybe just a funny story about the other guy. Either one of you got something lined up to go first?
Yeah, Bubba, what happened when you got shot at in Nebraska?
Well, that wasn't, well, that's a good story. It wasn't funny, but that's a good story.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you go ahead and tell that one while I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, you got shot at in Nebraska. Then you confronted the fellow on the side of the road, and he said that your green, what did he say, your laser was, he said you were pointing at him with a laser pointer or something, and it was your green headlamp? My
green LED headlamp, yeah. He was hunting the land over beside us, and I heard the bullet coming before the gun went off, and it hit the tree right beside my head.
Oh, wow, that's scary.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sitting up there with a bow, and I start screaming at him, and he shoots again. And I heard it come by, so I jump out of the tree heading towards the road, and I knew he was parked up there. And I was going to confront him when he come out, and cause he knew exactly where I was. And I'm sitting up there with the orange on, even though I got a bow in my hand, because it's gun season. And so I'm standing out in the middle of the road trying to make him stop, and he won't. He just goes around me off in the grass and takes off. And the guys hunting the other property were a mile away, and they said they could hear me screaming at him. And of course, he said he never heard me. But yeah, that was pretty scary.
I'm not sure I'd be standing in the road in front of a guy that just shot at me twice.
I wanted to give him my opinion on it. Let's me and him have a come to Jesus and see how it went. But he wouldn't stop. So he come back later and apologized. But I think that's because the landowner threatened to take him out up there. But
yeah, he's a big old boy.
Wow.
Yeah, he was. There's no doubt about that. So there's probably tons of stories. I'm trying to think of some now. There's a lot of entertainment that we have and a lot of good stories. Golly. I guess the one, and you had to really been there to enjoy it, but it was that time I was talking about Nebraska when it was -8 and it was 35-mile-an-hour wind and snowed 10 inches. And so, JT is never cold. He never complains about the cold. He's got his feet stuck out, in cold. He's never cold. And so if anybody gets cold, it's probably me because he never says anything.
Oh, boy, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. And he'll hunt with anytime when it's cold. And so we're up there in Nebraska, and I pull my Ranger out there and drops me off at the stand, and he goes past me and on out another 600-800 yards to the other side of the food plot on the river bottom in the Ranger. And so we sit there all day long. Don't come out. 12-hour sit, and it snowed 10 inches that day, and it's -8. And I've got my umbrella angled perfectly so the snow never hit me. Well, he didn't have an umbrella. So he's covered in snow the entire day, and it's cold and it's brutal, and I'm perfect. And so 10 minutes before dark, the wind switches, and my umbrella's got 10 inches of snow on top of it, and it all dumps right in my lap, covers me completely, in my pack, everywhere. So now I'm getting cold, and the last text I got was probably 30 minutes before dark, and Jay's telling me how cold he is and that he don't know if he's going to live through it, And so I start out of the woods dark, and I hear the Ranger crank way down the river bottom, get almost to the barbed wire fence where he dropped me off, and this Ranger, that Ranger will run 60. It comes by. I hear it coming pegged. It must be packing 7,000 RPMs. I see the light coming, and it comes at me wide open, slinging cow manure everywhere, and run. It don't even slow down at Bubba. It just goes right past me all the way back to the house, and I'm a mile from the house. Gone. And he's gone. I'm standing there with my light on, blinking. Hey, what about, I'm covered in snow. What about Bubba? He is gone. Nothing about him. He absolutely had to get back to the truck. Well, he gets back to the truck. Of course, the truck's locked, and I got the key to it in my pocket. So he can't get warm. He can't do anything. But the cold took him out then, and he didn't care about me or anybody else in the world except getting back to that house. It was funny. You had to be there to experience it. But yeah,
I've been giving him heck about not carrying but one key across the Midwest all these years.
Yeah, it paid off. That sounds
I
miserable.
finally started carrying 2 keys now, so he's got one. He can actually get in it. If we got one truck, he can get in it. But there's a lot of stories. There's been a lot of crazy times. We've done a lot of things out there. We could probably sit and talk about them for hours and come up with some really good ones. But
how about your booner story? I got to hear about your booner.
First of all, let me say one quick thing about his booner.
Yeah.
Let me say one quick thing about his booner. This was our first day ever to hunt in the Midwest. And I hunted the same stand for 13 hours that day. And I had to wear waders to get into the stand. And the waders were hanging on the base of the tree. I saw 1 deer at daylight, 2 deer at dark. All right, go ahead, Bubba.
Yeah, and the one deer he saw swam by.
Yeah, the first deer came by in a swim, full swim. All right, go ahead, Bubba. Tell about your booner.
Yeah, so he's whining the blues because this is all he's seeing is water. But now there's where he's at, there's an island out there that the deer pile up on. But unfortunately, he didn't see him. In a lock on that morning, and I've got 30 plus deer, and I don't know how many bucks running, fighting, grunting, mating, stuff we never in Georgia, and they were just going crazy. So I'm just beside myself, and I'm texting him and my daddy all the deer. Oh, and I got to tell you how it started out. This is a great story. So you don't know Old May, my daddy. Old May is famous, and Old May, things in the woods scare him, and he's been in the woods since he was born. He's been in the woods, but a coyote, something screaming, will put him in a full run. He don't like them, and he's been in. I don't know why. Never been attacked. He's been in the woods in places that I wouldn't go his entire life. So these stands are 22-foot ladder stands this outfitter had built. So that morning they drop me off. I'm in a lock on. Well, he calls me and he says, I can't get in the stand. This thing is a Widowmaker. What do you mean you can't? It's a solid steel 22-foot ladder, hand built. They're unbelievable stands. He said, I can't get in it. It's too tall. I'm not getting anything like that. I said, you got to get in the stand, Dad. You can't. I need to get in the stand. And I said, put on your safety. You'll be good to go. He said, I'm not getting in that stand. I'm just going to sit here on the ground. Well, as soon as we hang up the phone, a screech owl hollers, and my dad's probably about 400 or 500 yards away from me. I knew where they dropped him at. And a screech owl hollered, and my phone blows up. He calls me. He said, did you hear that? That wildcat? I said, it wasn't a wildcat. It was a screech owl. He said, no, it wasn't. That thing, it was a cougar. I said, it ain't a cougar. I said, where are you? He said, I'm in.
Yeah.
that cougar got him in that stand. I said, that's a 12-inch tall owl that just scared you to death. And he said, no, it ain't. It's a wildcat. But he climbed that tree in a heartbeat. So anyway, he made it to the top of the stand. But at 12 o'clock, the outfitter had told me that there's a milo field to my right. And he said, there's a stand on the other side of it. If you want to get down at 12, go over there and get in that stand. So I said, all right, I'll do that. And these fields are surrounded by sloughs. You know, they dig these sloughs out so when they flood, the water will hit these sloughs and drain out of there. So they're underwater in these sloughs. So I walk across the milo field, climb up in the stand, and I'm putting my stuff up. It's 12:15, and I hear the milo field's 92 yards wide, and I hear sloshing on the other side. And I look across in time to see his left beam turning. And I mean, he had 14-inch 2s and 13-inch 3s. And so just, it looked like a white picket fence. And I said, oh, Lord, have mercy. You know, and I'm trying to get my gun up because I'm putting my pack up. I'm still standing up trying to get situated. And he's walking in this slough. And so I put my scope on him, and twice I let off because I was notorious for jerking the trigger and hitting low right. And so I let off and told myself, you know, this will be your 1 in a million chance. Don't blow it. And finally, the third time I squeezed the trigger. Of course, it's a muzzle loader. Smoke goes everywhere. I can't see him. And when the smoke clears, I look over there and I hear gurgling, and I see one part of the rack sticking up out of the water. And I thought, oh, Lord, you got to be kidding me. I actually got this deer. So I call the outfitter to let him know, you know, and he says, don't go in the water after him, stay in the stand. And I said, you know, I know he's dead. And he said, well, he might not be. I said, well, unless he's got a snorkel, he's dead. He's underwater. So I text our JT, or I called JT, and I said, man, it's the biggest deer I've ever seen, dude. And I don't know how big he is, but if he's 180 to 200, if he's an inch. And he come out, they roughed him at 181. And so I was in the stand 6 hours and 15 minutes the first time in the Midwest, and he officialed at 174. I've got a 174-inch 10. And I said, then, you know, I'm hooked. I am not hunting Georgia anymore. I'll be in the Midwest. And I hadn't hunted Georgia since.
That's crazy, man. Hunt. So your first hunt out there, you kill a booner, and you've been out there, what, 10 years since?
Yep, ever since. Well, more than that. That was 06. So what, 12
that
years?
Was 06.
12,
right.
13th yep. year, yeah. This is about 13.
How many deer have you seen bigger than that, you think?
Oh, golly. Not many. Probably, what, Jay? Maybe 4, 5, or 6, I'd say.
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
3 or 4. I've seen one out there that I felt like, on that farm, that I felt like would go 200. And then I only seen him for a second. I was climbing a tree and had muzzle loader on a pull cord, and it was 10 foot below me hanging on that cord, and I was halfway up the tree, and all I could do was watch him walk by. And then, I don't know, those two I seen in Kansas would probably be close to that. I'm sure they would make boons, so they were probably 170, 180.
I guess that tells you how hard it is to kill one, you know?
Extremely hard.
Brutal.
And
I can't do it.
To do it with a bow. I mean, I hadn't seen one in bow range. So
yeah.
Hopefully one day. Hopefully this year we can put a stand up.
Well, JT, you got a closing story for us?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I can't think back where I've seen a boon within bow range. I've seen deer that I had no doubt in my mind were booner deer, but not within bow range. I guess if I wanted to go back to a closing story, I'd have to throw back on Gary, and I'm going to go back to 2005, which was the very first year out of very first. This don't have anything to do with me. It has nothing to do with me. And basically,
I'll go ahead and hang up now. Thank you. Appreciate it.
This is 100% because of the day that he killed his booner. I'm sitting on stand, and again, I saw one deer at daylight that swam by a doe, and then I saw 2 at dark that splashed by in Illinois. But let me go back to 2005, the year before that. We went to Kansas because Gary, because Bubba would
Texas.
He found this outfitter in Texas that was just a great place to be. And by the way, this outfitter in Texas was not a normal outfitter. It was a crazy place. It was kind of the Wild West. There was no outfitter. We slept in a trailer, a rat infested trailer, and they just had a lot of land. They had some black blinds that set up on towers, and and they had feeders and they had corn and either way, you went out there and had a good time, but it was low fence and you saw every kind of animal you can imagine. But it was kind of crazy because, again, it was our first time out of state. And in Georgia, in the heyday of Georgia back in the 80s, or I guess, early 90s, mid 90s, whatever, you saw a lot of deer, but nothing like you would see in Texas. And here we are in Texas and and we're using two-way radios or whatever. And Bubba shot, we heard a shot and Bubba hit the radio and he says, "You know what that was?" And we all said, "What was that?" He said, "That was Bubba. That was Bubba shooting a wide, huge, 18-inch wide Texas 10. A fine deer. 150-inch 10 is what he said. After we had driven 16 hours, we drove 16 hours for Bubba to kill about a 90-inch 10.
Yeah, I wouldn't say 90. I'd say about 70, maybe
70-inch 10.
Yeah.
So he hit us on the radio.
Weigh 90 pounds. Yeah.
No, he hit us on the radio and said that. And by the way, back in those days, we couldn't get on the internet live and post from my BlackBerry as well as we do now. Of course, no BlackBerry now, but you know what I mean. We couldn't get on post live. So most of this, I was texting to Woody from Woody's Campfire, and he was posting it all live for us at the time. But either way, but Bubba then about an hour later, Bubba, when you got down and went to the deer or whatever.
Oh yeah. Well, I had to cry for a while.
He says, he says, "What is this?" He said, man, I don't know what to tell you about this. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "This is a little bitty deer, a little bitty baby deer." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, it's a 10-point." He said, "This thing's not 70 inches."
And it probably weighs 60 pounds.
Yeah, so the 60-pound deer with a big rack on his head kind of grabbed Bubba back in 05, I guess, and it was kind of crazy to hear him because originally it started out with just like every deer hunter, all the highs and all the lows, like I talk about all the time, because he was as high as you could possibly be when he shot that deer. But something in his mind told him it was a massive deer. And then he never screws up on deer. Take my word for it. He is always on top of it. When he sees a deer, he knows the size of the deer, the weight of the deer. He knows he's great for details. But that year he missed it bad. He says, I don't know what the world got into my mind, but I got a picture of him holding his fingers between it, and he got it on one hand.
Yeah.
It's pitiful.
Maybe it was the proportions, the rack to weight ratio.
And that's what it is. We had never hunted out of Georgia. And so we had hunted in Texas one day, and we went in at dark and we got out at dark. So I thought the stand that I was in was looking over some grown oak trees. And I was looking at this deer at 150 yards. And, his antler to body proportion made him look like an 18-inch, 150-inch 10. Well, when I climbed down to go look at him, as soon as my feet hit the ground, I looked at the trees around me, and it's all those mesquite trees, and they're about 8 foot tall. And I thought they were 60-foot tall oaks. And I said, okay, something don't look right here. This, obviously this isn't what I was thinking as far as the trees. And then it's not that far down to it. It's a short walk down there to him, And when I walk up on him, I thought, you gotta be kidding me. This is the littlest deer I've ever seen. So yeah, it was an eye-opening experience. I don't think I talked for the rest of the day. I couldn't even believe that I drove 16 hours and paid that much money to shoot that. Yeah, it was pretty sad, but it was good fun. And I actually did a cap mount on it and hung in my dad's cabin just so I could talk about it from now on.
And I pointed it out every time we walked in the cabin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and everybody that comes in my dad's cabin, before he passed away, that's the first thing that JT had to show everybody. Check out his Texas mount. So
yeah,
that's okay. It's all good fun.
Well, that seems like a fitting
start of everything. So
fitting way to wrap this up. How can people follow along? What's the best way to see what you guys are gonna be doing this fall?
Well, obviously we're gonna be on GON's forums. The reason we kind of stuck with the forums all this time is because it kind of gives the interactive Facebook, of course, is the easiest way to follow, and Instagram, that kind of thing. But the drawback with those is the interactiveness is not as easy, and the blog format's not as easy. So that's the reason we stuck with GON forums all these years. So you can follow us on GON's forums, and you can follow on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. All of it's live from the tree.
So yeah, everything's. I know on GON there's like a separate thread, I think, just for live from the tree, and then you guys will post up something along some kind of title where people can follow that.
That's right.
On the
we'll start out.
You have to, what is it, Jay? It's under the deer hunting forum, and then it's a sub forum under the deer hunting forum that's live from the tree.
Right, that's it. Yeah. And
Will you guys put a link to that on your Facebook page?
Yep, there'll be a link book on the Facebook page, and there'll be regular updates on Facebook as well. Like I say, I do the Facebook. Obviously, we all know that social media has evolved a lot. Social media started out with all of the forums and that kind of thing. Now it's involved into Facebook and Snapchat and Twitter and all that. But there'll be links and daily updates on Facebook on the Live from the Tree group. And then the Live from the Tree group kind of kicks off right about now every year, and it gets bigger and bigger every year and gets faster and faster, and everybody follows it and has a good time with it. And then, but it all goes back to the forums just because it's so interactive, so easy to follow.
And the coolest thing about it, I think that Jay and I both love so much about it, is it's real time. So you're getting everything that's not edited. You're not getting just the best of what we do. You're seeing the good, the bad, the mistakes, the near misses, the lows, the highs. You're getting it as it happens. And so the excitement or the lack of excitement.
Or the non-excitement. Yeah. Right.
The non-excitement. Yeah. It's all real. It happens so you're getting it all. The pictures, everything is real. Nothing's edited. And I think
I can tell you from experience, when somebody puts up there to hold on, something's coming. It's hard to put your phone down and do something else till you find out what happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have a good time with it. So.
We love it. We absolutely love it.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on, guys. And looking forward to seeing how your season goes. When do you guys kick off?
I'll show up in Missouri October 22nd.
Can you give me a bus ticket so I can get up there?
Yeah. I'll stop by and get you since you got your 3-hour drive to get there.
Thank you, man.
Halfway through my 12. Yeah, I'll help you out.
Hey, guys, it was truly a pleasure, by the way. Thank you. I really enjoyed this.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
I've enjoyed it. Sure have. We appreciate you having us on and talking with us. We love this stuff. That's why we do it.
That was a lot of fun.